Hey guys, due to the pandemic, a lot of people want to spend more time in the garage, and if you want to have a good time in there without freezing or sweating, you need to insulate your garage doors, and I'm going to show you how. It's middle of May right now, and summer is fast approaching. What that means for most of us is we can look forward to higher electricity costs to cool down the home. And for those of us who like to spend a lot of time in the garage, it means a lot of uncomfortable sessions working in the heat. And as much as I love this garage and the setup that I have, it has one big problem or two big problems, which are these garage doors. Since I live in a townhome, this garage is very well insulated otherwise. But these two garage doors are a big problem because my house is west facing, which means sunlight hits these garage doors directly for up to 10 hours a day. And these garage doors are maroon colored, which is dictated by the HOA, so they're very dark. Not to mention there's these windows here that let sunlight in, heating up the garage. And in the hottest of the summer months, I recorded temperatures up to 150 degrees on these garage doors. So today what we're gonna do is try our absolute best to insulate these doors as much as possible using a variety of different methods. And because we want to quantitatively measure how effective our effort has been, I bought this Bluetooth temperature sensor, which records the temperature by the minute, and I'm able to download the temperature swings in this garage. And this has been running for about a week and a half to 2 weeks now. So I've been able to record the temperature on days that are sunny, cloudy, hot, or cool. So after we're done here, we will let this run for another week or so, and we'll be able to tell exactly how effective all of this has been. Okay, so before we do anything to the garage doors, we're gonna go ahead and give them a good wash and let them dry since they accumulated a whole bunch of spider webs and lots of dust on them. I'm obviously not trying to get them pristinely clean, but I do want to give them a quick rinse and wipe. And afterwards, we're gonna start with the windows, but if you don't have windows on your garage doors, just skip a few minutes to the next section. Gila seems to be one of the most popular brands when it comes to window films, so that's what I went with. Now, there are a variety of choices even within this brand, and I really just couldn't decide, so I ended up buying two different types. One is marketed as a means to enhance privacy as opposed to heat control, but after doing a little bit of research, I actually think both do a similar job in terms of heat rejection. One just happens to be more reflective from the outside than the other. I wanted to try both types mostly because this is something that I want to do for the windows inside of the house as well eventually, and I wanted to know what they really looked like in person before spending hundreds of dollars and potentially ruining the looks of the house. And Gila also sells the application kit, which I do recommend even though it's a little bit expensive for what it is, but it does make the job a lot easier than you would find it otherwise. Okay, so I won't go into the details of how to do this, mostly because Gila already has an excellent DIY video for you. I will just share a few thoughts and tips. Number one, if you want professional, absolutely flawless results, just go ahead and hire a professional. Most of this is actually easy enough, but getting the corners perfectly right is really, really difficult. If this looks good enough to you, then go ahead and do it yourself. But if you're a perfectionist, you will find yourself getting a little bit frustrated at times. I did improve with each window though, so if you have enough time and patience, maybe you'll do a better job than I did. And two, buy more film than you think you need because you will mess up and waste film. There's just too many different ways to mess it up, like accidentally creasing it while you're taking the layers apart, or getting it dirty before you put it on the window. You could cut it wrong, you could ruin a corner, and there's just so many different ways. So definitely get more than you think you need. Number 3, make sure you get the adhesive type film, not the static cling type. Static cling type is for basically people who know what they're doing, and adhesive type is already hard enough to get it to stick perfectly into edges and corners. So do yourself a favor and just get the adhesive type. And lastly, preparation is key. Clean your work area, get yourself a nice big clean table instead of working on dirty boxes like I did, and don't skip over razor blading the windows. Just wiping them clean is not enough, as particles that are still stuck on the glass will show up noticeably after you put film over the window. I was being a little bit lazy on the first window, and it looked so bad that I had to redo the entire thing. So this is what it looks like from the outside when you're done. It's untreated on the left side to compare, and you have privacy control mirror film on the right. On the other garage door, you have heat control titanium film on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, it's left untreated. I was actually quite surprised by how similar these look. You really won't notice that they're different films unless you already know that and are looking for the differences. And I know it's difficult to tell in the video, but both films do a great job of maintaining privacy during the day compared to the untreated window. And although privacy isn't the reason why I did this, I guess this is a bonus feature for me. It is worth mentioning that at night, when the brightness of the garage inside is much higher than the outside, these will not do anything to reflect light from the outside. This obviously is not a surprise, but just letting you guys know that, well, just in case. Alright, now that we're done with the window films, let's do something a little bit more substantial to insulate these garage doors. This is made by a company called Cellofoam, and it can be found at Home Depot or other similar retailers. The manufacturer states that it is a rigid, foamed plastic with resilient closed cells with a permanent high R value, which by the way is used to measure insulation capability. It's also water resistant and has excellent physical strength and dimensional stability. Okay, so from what I can tell, it's basically styrofoam with a sheet of vinyl attached on one side, although it does feel a bit stronger than the styrofoam that you would typically find in shipping boxes. And this isn't that cheap. It's about $65 for one kit, which is good for one standard size garage door, so I bought 2 of them for $130. Now, an alternative to this is getting a fiberglass insulation kit from Owens Corning, but it is more expensive, and much more critically for me, it doesn't do well with water. You guys saw me spray down the garage earlier, and that's actually something that I do quite often to flush out all of the dust that I make in here. So I decided to go with a fancy styrofoam instead and save a little bit of money too. Now, this actually ended up being a bit of a pain in the neck to install because I actually have an unusual garage door. The standard garage door, which is what this is pre-cut for, is 4 narrower panels from top to bottom. My garage doors are 3 wider panels top to bottom, so I have to cut this in shape to perfectly fit the panels, and I used masking tape to cover the gaps in between, which looked a little bit ugly despite my best efforts. Otherwise, the installation is really pretty straightforward. Just cut the pieces to shape if you need to and slide them into the door panels. You might have to remove the crossbars so you can flex these things in, but it wasn't that big of a deal to do. One thing I didn't like about this stuff is that it makes an awful mess. I mean, you are working with styrofoam. Little bits and pieces of it go everywhere if you cut them, so you might need to keep a vacuum handy to keep that under control. Otherwise, pretty easy to work with, and also these are really light, so your garage door motors won't have a problem lifting the additional weight. All right, so at this point, we're done installing the window film and the cellofoam on the garage doors. It is now nighttime, and check it out. If the brightness inside of the garage is higher than the outside, then the window film actually acts in reverse. And now it looks like I have 4 giant mirrors built into my garage doors, which is kind of cool. But it is really, really unsettling because there could be someone standing right outside peering in, and I wouldn't be able to see that. Not that that happens around here, but it is a very unsettling and kind of creepy feeling because, again, the window film is just providing privacy to the outside, not inside. And with the cellofoam, it was a little bit of a pain to install because of all the cutting and taping that I had to do, and I try to make it look as neat as possible. But ultimately, that won't matter because we are not done yet. And if you're new to my channel, there's probably one thing that you should know about me, which is that I like to overkill things. I like to overdo things no matter what it is I'm doing. And I'm sure that the cellofoam and the window film by themselves will do a decent job of cooling down this garage, but we are not done. The last thing that we're going to do is install reflective insulation material made by Reflectix on pretty much the entire garage door. So what that will do is get rid of this reverse privacy thing that I have going on now at night, and also just kind of cover up the cellofoam and the ugly tape and just turn this entire thing into kind of like a fridge door. Reflectix is the most well-known brand, but a lot of different companies make this double reflective insulation material, which has a wide variety of uses other than the garage door. You can use it on the roof, I think most people do. You can use it even behind a heating radiator, or wherever you need to bounce or stop radiant heat. It's not that expensive at around $40 per 100 square feet, and you can obviously get them cheaper if you buy in larger sizes. But like the cellofoam, it's not that complicated of a material. It's basically bubble wrap with reflective material stuck on both sides. I think one roll of 100 square feet will allow me to complete both doors, but I bought 2 just in case I run out. All right, so before we go any further, let me try to explain to you the 2 different options that you can go about installing this reflective heat barrier on your garage door and why that matters. The original plan was to do something like this, where I'm putting the material on top of the metal beam and this kind of lip on the garage door so that it creates an air pocket in between the metal garage door and the material, the insulation material itself, which should get you the highest R value. And the thing to note about R values is that even for the same material, depending on how you install it, it can come up with a very different result. So check this out. So this is apparently how you get an R value of 21, where you're not only double layering it, but much more importantly, you're leaving an air pocket between the material and the surface that you're trying to insulate from. Now, but that's not how they recommend you install this on a garage door. So this has an R value of only 3, and they're recommending essentially that you cut out kind of a perfect rectangular piece and put it right up against the garage door, the metal panel. And that's a second option that you have. Now, so I could actually, instead of doing this, which is kind of a headache in install, because then I would have to cut away kind of the perfect piece around this, to account for the bolts. And not only that, I have to keep track of where exactly the bolt holes are so I can reinstall this crossbar. But also, I don't want to use this aluminum foil tape anymore, which I'm sure is a very good product, because you guys know what happens when you use tape and the surface gets really hot over time, it melts. So what that might do is, if I ever want to reverse this for whatever reason, maybe the HOA doesn't really like me completely blocking out the windows or something like that, when I take it out, I don't want it to leave a whole bunch of tape residue on this metal surface and this painted surface and making it look really dirty. But maybe even worse, I don't want it kind of chipping away or peeling the paint here when I take it apart. So what I'm gonna do is actually use this automotive, or continue using this automotive masking tape instead, and trying to tape really lightly and neatly around this edge. And that tape should, hold the material for as long as I want it to, but it should be a lot less strong or leave much less residue when I go to remove it than this aluminum tape, which I'm not even sure if it'll come apart in one piece. That might be more like permanent tape. Anyway, so I am going to cut a perfect rectangle right here and place it, right up against this insulation material. If you don't have this, obviously you'll put it right next to the garage door itself, just like how Reflectix apparently recommends. But I should, have a much higher R value than 3, because this styrofoam cellofoam layer is a giant air pocket in itself. So I'm not too worried about, losing R value. All right, we're making good progress, but I hit a bit of a snag. I ran out of the yellow masking tape, and I'm not gonna be able to finish this anyway with the yellow masking tape. I have plenty of other colored masking tape, but I am peculiar enough about these things to care, so I'm gonna order more of the yellow ones so that my garage doors don't end up in like 3 different colors. Hey guys, this is a couple of days later. I got more rolls of this yellow tape so we can go ahead and finish the job. But before I go ahead and do that, I wanted to show you something. So it is 4 o'clock right now, and the sun is beating down on these doors once again. It's about 84 degrees outside, so not too hot, but there's almost no cloud cover, so direct sunlight is beating down on these doors. So I have this infrared thermometer, and if we point it at where it is still completely uninsulated, you can see that it's quite hot, 130-ish degrees. Yeah, it's pretty warm. It's pretty hot to the touch. That's not a surprise, we already knew that. If we point it at where it only has the cellofoam layer, you can see that it's 85 degrees. So that is almost 40 degrees of temperature difference with just the cellofoam. Now, if we point it at where it has a third layer, I put this little masking tape here because I can't use the infrared on if it's a reflective shiny surface. So I put this tape right here to measure the temperature, and if we go ahead and do that, the temperature changes to about 81 degrees. So another 4 degrees of difference. So I totally understand that the second layer here is kind of overkill, doesn't make a huge difference. It's probably not worth the effort or the money, but I'm doing it anyway. But just to be fair, if we only have the reflective layer like we have here, there is no cellofoam behind this. Behind this is just a tinted window. So if I point it at that right there, then even the even the reflective barrier by itself takes it down to around 84. And again, it's the sunlight is directly hitting this right now. So I think the conclusion is you really shouldn't do both. I'm doing both just because I'm kind of crazy, but Just pick one and you should be perfectly fine. The double layering thing only makes a marginal difference, but I'm pretty satisfied to see how much of a difference it actually makes. From 130 degrees to 80 degrees, that is 50 degrees of difference on these garage doors. So I'm really excited to kind of finish this up and see what the temperature swings of this garage really now looks like. All right, guys, we are all done in here. And this took me about 3 days or about 10 hours worth of work. Of course, if you're not doing total overkill like this, you probably don't have windows in your garage doors. You probably have standard garage doors, and you probably don't want to do 2 layers like I did. So for you, if you were just trying to do this with 1 layer, there's no reason why it should take more than 3 hours worth of work. And of course, as soon as I finish this, we're expecting to get a tropical storm in the area, which means I won't get a sunny, hot day for about a week. So what I'm gonna do is actually release this video and follow up with an update about 2 weeks later when I can measure the temperature in the garage when it's really sunny and hot. And I'll be able to tell you guys exactly how much of a difference this all made. So be on the lookout for that, but this is it for this episode. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.